Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, April 25th business meeting at the Central Special School District. Please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Amy, can we please have a roll call?
Director Asner?
Here.
Director Cuneo?
Here.
Director Faulkner?
Here.
Director Hudson? Director Moeller? Vice President Byers? President Petroff?
Here. First on our agenda, do I need a motion?
No.
Okay. First, we have a wonderful, wonderful thing. We are going to celebrate our Xander Award winners and scholarship recipients.
Good evening, President Petroff, Board of Directors, Dr. Keenan. I'm Jennifer Henry, the Executive Director of Communications, and tonight I have the honor of celebrating our Xander Award and scholarship recipients. This is one of the best nights and definitely the best board meetings because we get to honor all of the great things our students are doing. And I know we're a little tight in here, but I am so excited to see so many people here to support our students. So thank you all for coming tonight. We will begin this evening by recognizing the Xander winners. When I call your name, please come forward, come over here to this area where I am, and we will hand you your award. We'll ask you to come up front and remain up here, and we're going to take a group photo after we've announced everybody's name. Right? I'm going to share a little bit about the Xander Awards. They are named after Rosemary Xander, who was a long-recognized educator. She was long recognized for accomplishments of students receiving services or technical ed from SSD. Since 1988, students have been honored for success in a variety of categories: academics, arts, athletics, communication, vocational training, employment, independent living skills, community service, and extracurricular activities. The recipients are chosen by a panel of judges who carefully review and score the many nominations submitted each year, poring over the heartfelt and thoughtful words of SSD staff who clearly think the world of their students. While it makes the selection challenging, it is a true testament to the special work of SSD. Thank you to all of our nominators, and congratulations to all of our Rosemary Xander Award recipients. I'm going to start with our first award winner, Ellie Boyette. Our next winner, who could not be with us this evening, is Reed Durham. Next is Damian Ewald. Dave Gillespie. Corey Howard. Dylan Kaiser. Sean Kemp. Dominic Lafiore. David Hurt,
That's great. Yeah. Very well, congratulations.
next, is Addie Claxton Acosta, who couldn't be with us this evening.
This is it.
Soriano, Gianna Souther, Micah Trulove Parrish. Lily Walker.
Hello.
Hannah West. And finally, Deshaun Wilborn. Okay, we're gonna have you all line up. I'm gonna get you in an order so you can get a picture of them.
Can I have my collar book? So we have you and you on each side.
Stand up.
Jen, do you want to stay behind? On our tiptoes? Yeah, actually, we've had the board come to the center. I'm actually gonna have you guys. Can you come up this way? A little bit more.
Sit. Mary, you need to. And if you guys can hold your words, so we can see them. You're happy to share the photo. All right.
Out to the hallway for some cookies and punch. But before you leave, I'd like to point out that we have photos of all of our award winners on our honorary wall over here. These are all the photos that appear with the information about our winners on our website. So thank you all again for coming tonight. Congratulations to our winners. This story, the lady in black, she will have
You're welcome. They have things.
our scholarship winners, if you could join us in the boardroom. Thank you. On the staff. Scholarship winners.
Yeah, we can do that.
Our next recognition is for the James E. Westbury Board of Education Scholarship. The SSD Board of Education is committed to helping all SSD students achieve success, no matter how they individually define that success. For many years, the board has provided scholarships to graduating students who receive special education services or attend an SSD Tech high school. In 2018, the board added the name Dr. James Westbury to the scholarship in recognition of his many years on the board as a fierce advocate for education throughout the St. Louis region. These scholarships are made possible by generous donations from the Tomaszek Law Firm. Representatives from the firm are with us this evening, Mr. Bo Tomaszek and Mr. Jim Tomaszek. This year's James E. Westbury Board of Education Scholarship winners are Amelia Alonso from South Tech and Lindbergh High School. Join us this evening. Our next winner is Spencer Thomas from Marquette High School. Please come forward. Come up here. The student that will get a photo in just a moment. Spencer was awarded the Westbury Board of Education Scholarship, which he will use as he pursues a secondary education this fall at Reagan Technical College, possibly enrolling in a dual associate's program. He has always been fascinated by electrical devices and figuring out how to fix things and how they work. So it's no surprise that his career goal is to become an electrician. And if I could invite the Tomaszeks to come out for this photo as well, and we'll get a picture with the board. Yeah, come in. Okay. Right now, I have a little more room.
You're gonna have to center us, guys. I'm gonna be on this side this time. This is my better, provider. Just tell. I'm not retiring this week anyway.
I don't know. You can't retire till I retire.
When are you retiring?
Our next scholarship is the Bottom Line Scholarship. The Bottom Lions are longtime supporters of education in the St. Louis area and have been providing scholarships to graduating SSD students since 1987. In addition, the Lions conduct a variety of projects and events that benefit children throughout our community. This year's Bonham Lions scholarships are awarded to Sarah Brooks, have you hang out there, we'll get all of the honorees up at once for a photo. Sarah is a senior at Bayless High School with a 4.3 GPA. She has excelled in biomedical science and advanced math throughout her coursework. Her desire to pursue a degree in biotechnology and eventually work in a medical laboratory led her to participate in activities sponsored by HOSA, the Health Occupation Students of America, and the Young Scientist Program. After graduation, she plans to attend the University of Missouri St. Louis and its honor college. Congratulations, Sarah. Our next winner is Liam Cassidy from Parkway Central High School. Liam will begin pursuing his dream of working in the media industry at Lindenwood University this fall. He will pursue a degree in cinema arts, which he has been preparing for himself to do by writing, producing, and editing his own material using iMovie. Congratulations, Liam. There is Holly Connor, who was not able to join us this evening. She will be studying musical performance with an emphasis in voice at Webster University this fall. Our next winner is Austin Seidenstreicher. Austin is a Parkway South High School and South Tech student who has earned many ICAR, the Inter-Industry Conference on Auto Collision Repair certificates. He aims to earn an automotive professional collision repair technology associate's degree from Reagan Technical College. Congratulations.
A little bit and have the board sign up around.
You can take it.
I'm too small.
Congratulations.
Our last scholarship is the Allison M. Haig Memorial Scholarship. The scholarship was established in 2008 in memory of Allison Marie Haig, a former SSD teacher assistant. She was an inspirational teacher who at an early age knew she wanted to make a career working with children. This year, the scholarship is awarded to Emily Butler from South Tech and Kirkwood High School. Unfortunately, she was not able to join us this evening, but she wanted to share that she plans to become an elementary teacher based on her interactions with her teachers and her experiences with SSD. So thank you to everyone who has participated this evening. We appreciate you coming to support your scholarship winners. We invite you to join us out in the hallway for cookies and punch before you leave. Thank you, guys. Congratulations.
Real quick while they are exiting, next we have public comment, but there is none. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So,
Second.
First thing on the superintendent's report, 5.01, deaf and hard of hearing program. Do I have, yay, nay, right? All in favor of the agenda?
aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Yes. Now we can go to 5.01, deaf and hard of hearing program.
Good evening, community, colleagues, and friends, and the Board of Education. President Potroff as well. This evening, Dr. Rob Werther will be presenting information on the deaf and hard of hearing program throughout St. Louis County.
Good evening. President Potroff, Board of Education, Dr. Keenan, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Should be a PowerPoint that pops up here. There should be a PowerPoint?
Yeah, there's one.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Dr. Keenan. Usually there's a cheat sheet here.
Yeah.
It's not here this evening, so I apologize. My name is Rob Werther. I am the Director of Low Incidence, which means I supervise programs across the county, hearing, vision impairments, orthopedic impairments. So roughly that comes up to about 1,200 students between all those groups and approximately about 200 staff. So it's a big footprint within St. Louis County, but it's also low incidence. And the reason that title is there is because the type of disability that these students have, the incident rate of them is much smaller than other disabilities. We're working on my PowerPoint, so I promise. So the purpose of this evening's PowerPoint, just to kind of preface this, is we've been looking and doing evaluations on the number of students that we have in enrollment in our deaf, hard of hearing programs. And we have two programs currently across the county. We have a program that is in Hazelwood. We have a program that is in Parkway. And looking at projected trends, and you'll see this in the PowerPoint as well as it comes up, our trend numbers over the next 5 to 7 years start to diminish. What we're finding is that medical advances in the deaf, hard of hearing world have really started to reduce the number of students with deaf, hard of hearing needs. But what we're also finding is the students that have deafness, particularly the young ones that are coming in, have other disabilities in conjunction. And so when we see that trend, we started looking at what would be the best possible way to maximize our services for students. And so we have gone through a series of evaluations to look at combining the two programs in one district as opposed to having two separate districts. I think what we're going to see is over the course of the next 5 years, as those numbers diminish, we would have to consolidate those programs anyway. So now is probably the best time to do it. While we have people that are able to do this, we've got good, strong staff. And so we're in the process of doing that. We've met with Parkway. They've been extremely helpful in this transition process. And as we go through that, the PowerPoint will show different numbers and things of that nature. But that's okay. It's been a long process. We started this process in January, started to have conversations with both districts about making that transition. And then it has been presented to Parkway Board. We've talked to the Hazelwood superintendent. So everybody has been through this process of being made aware of what the decision has been to merge these two programs. We have had several open houses for the parents coming from and students coming from Hazelwood to Parkway. Parkway's been very generous in looking at doing individual open houses just for these families that are making that transition. They've been able to ask questions, take tours of the building, and frankly, throughout all of this process, very few concerns. And most of the concerns that have come up have been private conversations. We've been able to work through individual issues. So it's been very positive in that regard. We have a lot of very excited families and students, particularly when they get into the building and they see it's real and they meet the administration. The kind of ironic, funny, ha-ha thing is that a couple of the administrators in Parkway are former Hazelwood administrators. So they know these families to a certain degree. They know the type of programs that they've been in. And so it's going to be a very nice, easy transition. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to read through this. So I apologize.
Is there a way to get a copy of this?
It's in the board docs if you want to. Very bottom piece of it.
Oh, it is.
Yes, at the very bottom.
It's really scroll down.
Yeah.
Okay, is everybody ready now? Yeah, I apologize for the mishap, I really do. So the purpose of this presentation is to update the SSD Board of Education on the unification plan of the DHH programs that are currently in Hazelwood to the Parkway School District. So I'll provide you an overview of the DHH program and then provide data regarding student numbers, staff numbers, and classroom spaces. Batteries running low on this, so I'll leave the charger. Relocation of the considerations for the DHH program currently. So there are 3 buildings that have the program in Hazelwood: Brown Elementary, Hazelwood North, and Hazelwood Central High. And where we'll be moving those classrooms to is Highcroft Elementary, Parkway Northeast Middle, and then Parkway North High. We currently have 3 DHH classrooms in Parkway as Parkway West, Parkway West High, and then Bellevue. So the rationale, why are we doing this, and I've talked about this a little bit so far, is by expanding on the current DHH programs in Parkway, SSD, and Parkway with increased utilization of resources. There is that anticipated decline in numbers, as I discussed before. And then the DHH teacher certification, what we call a teacher of the deaf, or a TOD, is a very specific certification. And it gets harder and harder, just as it is hard to recruit special education teachers when you have these very small, specific teacher of the visually impaired, teacher of the deaf. Those certifications do not have a lot of applicants. So with that, creating a single district to support students in the DHH program will assist in recruitment, retention, and professional development for those staff. And then Parkway, as I stated before, is one of the 2 districts that we're currently partnering with to the DHH programs. So in looking at the relocation of the DHH programs, there are some benefits. So long-term planning as anticipated student population changes, shifting needs of the DHH program. So students have been identified more than deaf hard of hearing needs, as I talked about before. There's more than just deafness there. So we're going to need a multidisciplinary. Hey, look at that. I'm almost done, so this works. So there's going to need to be a need for a multidisciplinary, we're on slide 6. So there you go. So multidisciplinary team support. So starting in kindergarten, students will now have the DHH community, will be able to stay with their peers all the way through high school. So we'll be really looking at a community idea here. So better utilization of staff means better services for students. The same calendar will allow for same professional development days, which has been a struggle for us for the last few years. Same academic expectations increases collaboration, and that increased inclusionary opportunities in one district for our students to have essentially a DHH community. And then transportation for extracurricular activities, field trips, and other events will now be centralized. So to start this, we did have a communication plan that we worked through. So on March 9th, I met with all of the DHH staff in both of those districts and talked about what the transition, we went through this exact PowerPoint. And then we had a letter that went out in conjunction and the timing with Parkway that went out to families on March 11th. And then the week of March 20th, we pulled students in, had conversations about what the transition would look like and how that would go. Wednesday, March 9th, again, this is just a little bit more detail. I gave the presentation to all of the DHH staff. We answered questions and then documented concerns topics. And frankly, there weren't a lot of concerns that came from staff. There was a lot of enthusiasm about this potential move. In terms of communication to families, we sent a letter, email to all families, and then we made phone calls, one by one, to each family that would be involved in the unification plan. We met with some families individually, because some of them had specific questions about their students and the complex needs some students have. The feedback has been positive overall. We've conducted open houses, as I stated before, and then we will do open houses again in August. That will be for those families coming into the building. So if a family couldn't make our open house in April to those individual buildings, we made phone calls, we offered private tours. Parkway's been a very accommodating partner in this process. So on the communication plan to students, on the week of March 20th, Emily Moxie, one of the DHH special education coordinators, talked to all of the students that she supervises in Hazelwood and talked about the unification plan, and then also documented their concerns. There wasn't concerns. The students are excited. They're very excited. We've set up field trips for the students to come during the school day to the Parkway building, which has been phenomenal. It's been very supportive for those kids. Again, when they come with their families, it's one thing. When they come with their peers, it's another. So it's been nice. So in terms of timeline, we will make this move for the start of the 23-24 school year. And individual considerations have been made for students at transitional points, meaning those students that are juniors this year that will be seniors. They've been allowed by Hazelwood to stay if they choose to. I will tell you, as of today, we only have 4 students that have opted to stay at Hazelwood to finish out their senior year. Okay. In terms of data, this will also be in your handout. There are some links here. If I pull it up on the screen, it'll be super, super small, but I will just talk about some of the trends that the data shows. Is that, again, over the next 5 to 7 years, so one of the main points is that we have no third graders in the program at Hazelwood right now. So you can see that those numbers decline pretty quickly. And this is also not a type of disability that has onset later in life. So we get most of these students from the early childhood to kind of feed up. So I feel the projections are fairly accurate in terms of what we'll be dealing with in the next 5 to 7 years. So if you go to the next slide, please. These are the current numbers, and I say current, I'm going to put that in quotes, because the number does shift from time to time. But in terms of the number of students in Hazelwood, K through 5, we're talking about 21 students, and in Parkway there's 17, grades 6 through 8, 22, and in Parkway there's 13, and grades 9 through 12 there's 15, and then 12 students in Parkway. In terms of the staff, this is a breakdown of the staff. I won't read through all of those, but essentially, we'll now be combining both these groups into one district with 2 feeder paths. Next slide, please. And then the overall projected is here. I'm sorry, go back one. So in terms of the number of DHH teachers that we'll have in Parkway is 23. The number of SLPs is 5. The number of paras is 16. The number of interpreters is 47. So that includes all pathways. So again, it's taking one program that was in Hazelwood, moving it to 2 programs in Parkway, which will be on the north side, and then one that's on the west side. Slide is the last one. I put it up for questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Why is there why is there such a difference in Parkway's numbers for deaf and hard of hearing as opposed to the other districts?
So I'm going to speculate here because I don't.
I mean, because Rockwood, Parkway, and Hazelwood should be roughly all about the same.
Well, the Parkway program, it includes students that attend Melville and Rockwood. That is the feeder for the Parkway program.
But when I looked, the Parkway numbers were that large. Then they have the Melville ones.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I mean, I'm talking about Parkway's numbers were 19. Melville had 3.
Yeah.
It's not that large of a difference in those 2 populations. Hazelwood's was not anywhere near that size as 19. Why is Parkway? Why is the diagnosis of deaf and hard of hearing so much larger there? And I say that because I see discrepancies in diagnosis throughout the districts, but this is one I can't understand.
Sure, stab at it. This is just my own thinking in terms of how I see this. Parkway's program has been there a long time, and traditionally we know families that are in the deaf hard of hearing community are very tight knit, and so.
That's always been my theory about autism.
Yeah.
So the other part of this too is, because when we talked about, right now, there's 3 programs in Parkway. It's Belle Reeve, and then they go to, north?
Correct. Well,
They go to West Middle School, and then they go to West High School. And you can see now that Belle Reeve does not feed in naturally, so all the other peers, the gen ed peers, go to middle school. They go to Northeast, Belle Reeve. And then the students who are part of the DHH program were having to go to West, so they had to acclimate to all new students. And so in this plan, we're able to do the 2 tracks, but they're going to feed together. So it's a better support system for our students, and it also supports the inclusionary environment and supporting the student experience. So they're going to go from Belle Reeve to Northeast Middle to High, and then Highcroft is a new program that they're going to go to Highcroft to West.
Correct. Dr. Keating is right on the point there in terms of, that was one of the conversations that came up quite a bit with Parkway as we were making this move, is like, if we're gonna do this move, we can make this correction, because we don't wanna see our students have to miss out on their peer groups as they're going through the program, for middle and high school, which is a great point.
And I think Northeast Middle School is also having, sign language as, one of their classes.
And sometimes North High. So, both of those buildings have that.
Yep.
And currently West High does as well. So when you go to West High, we actually did a tour. We got to see students that are, general education students that are taking sign language courses.
Yep.
The interpreters love, because they see those as future interpreters, so it's a big plus.
We brought this to the PAC in Parkway, and they were just very excited about it, too.
The welcome wagon has just been phenomenal. I can't say enough about Dr. Amy Blumenfeld. She's been instrumental in helping us. She's director for special education for Parkway. And Dr. Greg Matheson has been phenomenal. He's the superintendent for student services in Parkway. Dr. Steve Marty, they've all been exceptional in helping us in this transition.
Would that same explanation be the reason for the moves from Hazelwood?
Not sure I understand the question.
Well, I'm looking and you're saying that about the number of students that are leaving from Hazelwood to go to Parkway, as well as paraprofessionals and interpreters and teachers. So is that we just heard about the same reason that particular transition takes place?
I think
As
so.
far as Hazelwood?
I'm not sure I understand the question, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm looking here that we have 58 students in the Hazelwood DX program moving to Parkway.
Okay.
And we also show here that we've got paraprofessionals moving to Parkway from Hazelwood, as well as interpreters and teachers, special language therapy.
So those are all DHH-specific staff. Those are not a part of the special education numbers for Hazelwood. So Hazelwood
And
isn't
they're
losing
moving
staff.
from Hazelwood to
Correct.
Parkway.
But Hazelwood isn't losing special education staff. They're losing the program. That's it.
Okay, and that's what I'm saying. The
Yeah.
program is no longer available, or it just transitions from Hazelwood to another school.
It's transitioned to,
So those
Parkway.
58 students that are enrolled in Hazelwood now have to go to Parkway to be able to get that particular program.
the majority of them, the ones that are staying behind are in those transition years that Parkway has granted them to stay. So currently that's 4 seniors, it would be 8th graders, and then 5th graders. So we have the additional staff to allow us to continue to support those students.
I had a question, similar about the students that are currently going to school. How do their commute times, their rides on school buses, how do those get affected? And can you get some numbers on how much longer they're?
I don't have specific numbers, but it is something we've been looking through. So mind you, the students in Hazelwood, the program, come from Riverview, come from Ferguson, Florissant, come from a variety of districts. Our estimate at this point in time is about 20 extra minutes for the majority of our students. But again, that's an estimate. Some kids will have longer, some kids will have shorter. Particularly, and that's why we chose the north side of the district, is if you know where Parkway North is, it's right off 270. It's a straight shot from Hazelwood to that, and the North High is not that far off from there either. So, on average, if you're asking for a specific number, we're talking about 20 extra minutes on the bus.
And the extremes,
Oh, it could get to 35 minutes.
that's about as long as we're.
Yeah, and we have that currently in Parkway with students from Melville. You know, unfortunately, you get a bus route that hits traffic at a certain time of the day, we're looking at 45 minutes for some of the students at times. We try to minimize that, and when that does pop up, we're quick to work with Kenny Molnar, who does a great job of trying to work through and see what we can do to minimize that time. But it is a concern to look at.
You mentioned that for the most part, this was well received by the families. Of course, I'm sure there were some folks who had objections. What were those?
So the objections really came, if I'm going to be direct, is some of the families that were currently at Belle Reve wanted to continue to stay, but they were slotted to move to Highcroft. And so some students had we had some other things we needed to take into consideration to ensure that, number one, the balance of numbers, making sure we had the right amount of staffing in those buildings. There was not concerns from the families moving from Hazelwood to Parkway.
I have a couple questions. For these students, you mentioned at the very beginning, these students, correct me if I'm wrong, you said their only diagnosis is deaf and hard of hearing, they don't also have
I made a very generalized statement, and I apologize for that. So students that are in the DHH program do have a diagnosis of deaf, hard of hearing. Some of those students have additional diagnoses as well. They're probably could be autism, it could be all kinds of things. What we're finding is students that are just straight diagnosed deaf, hard of hearing, we're seeing less and less of those. As we're seeing in early childhood, more students come that have deaf, hard of hearing and something additional. So we're seeing kids that are a little bit more complex in their needs. So, yeah, it's not exclusive to just, you can only have DHH.
So those other students could still be in this program, or would
Absolutely.
they be more?
No, they would still stay in this program. That's the purpose of trying to combine these, because the way that I'm looking at it in the role that I serve is I have to project 5 years out to begin to encompass what we're going to be getting from those early childhoods, so they can stay in smaller programs and be in communities as long as we possibly can. So we're trying to make that adjustment now.
And the teachers, the Hazelwood students, will they be able to keep their teachers and parents? Are they going to move as a unit?
So one of the issues is that we're having kids move from grade levels up. So some of the teachers would change automatically simply because of that process. We're looking at the bulk of the Hazelwood teachers are going to Highcroft. Some of the students will have their teachers, some of the students will be getting new teachers. And that's what we're trying to work through, because so we have all the final numbers to make sure that all the families were on board and we were going through all of this. That's the part we're working on now, is how do we ensure that.
Nothing else, from a parent's point of view.
Sure.
Parents sometimes can go grade to grade with the students compared to the teachers that are stuck with one grade.
And their interpreters. I'll be honest,
Yeah,
the relationship between child and their interpreters is really strong.
So those are key.
We're trying to preserve as much as we can, but I'm just be blunt. There are some that are going to get disrupted that just unfortunately will have to do.
Those students in the DHH program who qualify for an ESY for an extended school year, do you meet their needs through the DHH program, or do they go to their local school district?
So typically, DHH has their own ESY program. So just to clarify, this year, they will finish out their ESY program in Hazelwood, and in the following year, they'll finish out their ESY program in Parkway. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for working through that technical difficulty and,
Yeah, it does. As long as you guys work for it.
Thank you. All right. Next, 5.02, family and community engagement.
Good evening, President Trump, Board of Directors, and Dr. Keenan. My name is Molly Bolton, and I am the Executive Director of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability. This evening, I also have with me our administrators from our FACE, or Family and Community Engagement Division, Adrian and Latrice Moore. And tonight, we will be giving you an update on what's been happening with FACE. The purpose of this presentation is really just to kind of update you on what we have been doing this year with. Just to remind you of the combined mission and the engagement standards that we follow for FACE. So you can see our mission there, and those engagement standards, as we report out our data, we will be reporting them according to each engagement area. Those consist of a welcoming climate and culture, supporting student success, two-way communication, sharing decision-making, and collaborating with our community partners. Currently, our staffing, we do have the 2 administrators who I introduced earlier. We also have a 10-month administrator who is Deborah Fiasco. And we have Michelle Franklin, who is our Family and Community Outreach Support, and Emily LaBou, who is our FACE liaison. We do have a vacancy right now. Kim Redden just retired. And so we do have a vacancy, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later in the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Adrian to talk about our goals.
So good evening, everyone. As a division, we developed 3 goals, and the first goal was always going to be to support students, right? Students and families. And what we aim to do is create workshops and opportunities for families to learn and reinforce learning in their home. So we are on track for that. Our baseline was 67.70%, but based on our feedback from our workshops and opportunities for families, we are at an 84%. We also wanted to make sure that we were increasing family leadership opportunities. So we wanted to target families in areas that had the least amount of participation in our Family Leadership Institute. And I'm happy to say that as of this spring's FLI, we're actually at 60%. So we've increased that. We've incorporated 2 districts that had not participated in FLI in a significant amount of time. So we are happy to have Valley Park and is it Jennings on board with us? So those families are participating with us now. Lastly, we wanted to, as we merged, we wanted to create a greater opportunity to support our staff. And so one of our goals this year was to really get out into our partner districts and our SSD schools and to create opportunities to improve just the knowledge and awareness of our programs with our staff. And so we've had opportunities to go out and support staff at about 75%. And we're really looking at the spaces where we have gaps, and we're trying to target that with the directors and the SPED coordinators as well. Next slide. So we have a number of action steps that we are completing. We are on track for all of them, and that's increase our awareness of our department and the services we offer, conducting outreach with our community partners. We're trying to get the information that we have to the families that we serve in whatever capacity we can. Next slide, please. As Dr. Bolton stated, as we present tonight, we're going to really take you through a tool that we created a couple years ago, and this is the Family Engagement Quality Indicator Checklist. This tool actually was created to create an inclusive practice with our partner district staff as well, because we know that learning takes place in all places and that we have to make environments inclusive and we have to share the information. So tonight we're going to look at the first one, which is welcoming climate and culture. How do we build communities of belonging and inclusivity? And one of the ways we do that is welcoming school walkthroughs. We have conducted these visits in our schools for the last 4 to 5 years just to support the climate so that families and community partners who visit with us have an understanding of the learning that's taking place, and they also know that we want them there, right, that they're an important partner with us. A new initiative this year has been Family Cafe. These have truly been a hit in our district. Family cafes take place at North Tech High School. We've had 2 different sessions, so they are 3 sessions apiece. We've had a lot of repeat participants in this space, but the thing that's most important is these are families that have never come to district level events before. So they come in and they find community with us in the cafe, and we've even had a family member go on to start a pack in the district because of the community they built with us in the cafe. Again, we're doing some intentional recruitment of families, so we're going out into community festivals. So you'll see we attended the Pagedale Community Festival, Hazelwood Summer Fair, a Normandy Family Fun Day, and the Red Circle in Ferguson. Slide, please. Teaming up for student success. These are some of the events that we have, and we have 2 more lunch and learns available this year. These happen on Wednesdays or Thursdays from 11:30 to noon, but we usually have 25 people online learning with us. We also have the family engagement workshops. We've completed 12 of those this year with recorded videos of all of those sessions as well. So sometimes we have families reach out to us and say, I couldn't make it. We send them the link and they're like, great, so then they give us feedback about it. One of the data points there is, did we increase your knowledge with this? Because that's the whole purpose, right, is that families are learning a skill or strategy to reinforce learning. And we have an 88% there. We want to reach 100%, so we'll be talking to our stakeholders to find out how do we do a better job. But they do say whatever strategies they've learned, that they've learned it with efficiency enough to use it in their home, which is most important. Another new initiative this year was our Family Academy, which took place at Northview High School. That survey basically told us that our vendors were extremely happy, our families were extremely happy about the opportunity to learn together, but that there was a place for improvement. We have to do a better job of communicating the event and communicating, we did it on Veterans Weekend, so that was a mistake. So we're gonna actually, do a better job of planning it next year so it doesn't fall on a holiday. But we had great feedback, and we even had board member participation, so we thank you for that. The last thing, my next slide, please, is that we wanted to show you the connection between the work that we're doing. So we know that two-way communication is important. We have a new data management system. And so the three spheres of influence that we work with in our department is community, home, and schools. And this is how our breakdown goes with our contacts to our department. So families contact us, school staff contact us, and even our community partners. So we're seeing 60% of our contacts directly with families, 27% comes from our staff, and 13% is our community partners. So we're creating that overlap to succeed, to help our students succeed. Next slide, this is just breaking it down into those 5 areas that we talked about, those standards. So the same information just presented a different.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And so this next slide here is where we're going to share information with you about how we are amplifying family voice and choice here, and that is with our Family Leadership Institute. And so on tomorrow, we will have day 2 of the Institute. The first night, we had 18 participants, and with our follow-up, we will have 27 in attendance on tomorrow night, provided everyone follows through with that commitment. And so, in addition to that, with the parent, family advisory councils, the district PAC, we have 15 of our 22 partner districts that are active and having their own individual PACs. And when I say individual, the district PACs often look very different, depending on the leadership and the team and how the family wants to facilitate. And at this time, we are supporting Hazelwood with getting up and running once again. And so we are very excited about these 2 opportunities for our families to be more vocal and use their own choice. One of the other things that we, as Vision did on this year, was we created a district tool pack kit, and that kit gives the individual PAC information on how to facilitate, recruit, letters to send out, and how to continue on with their PAC. And as well, with that, we will continue to support them along the way. Next slide, please. One of the things that I failed to mention here with the previous slide is that for the first time, we have four families who are in attendance at our FLI from Normandy School District. This is tremendous in that with partnership with the director and the team and staff in Normandy, we've been able to see a great increase with that family participation, and we are very excited for that particular school district. The other piece of family voice and choice is the family and school engagement survey. And so the question was posed, how can we help students engage and learn in home? And as you will see here, the theme that was incorporated with that is sharing strategies to support learning in the home, communicating the learning objective and needs of the student consistently. And so the suggestions and the feedback here, the theme is flexible timing and opportunities for activities for families to learn and network. Next slide. The next question posed was for suggestions to improve the school climate for students. The theme, inclusion efforts, anti-bullying, increased visibility awareness. And so the theme, again, here was collaboration of SSD and partner districts, two-way communication, and to increase support for students
and staff. So again, that is a collection of the feedback, the overall feedback that we gathered from the parent survey. Next slide, please. Okay, collaborating and networking with our partners. And so we know that collaboration is key, is very important. We partner with 40 local communities, and we facilitate a stakeholder collaboration meeting twice annually. And so this is done virtually. And what we're doing is that we're getting current and up-to-date information so that when we are providing resources to the family, the community, and staff members, that it is tangible information that is vetted and is something that they can use right away. The Family Resource Hub is located at, again, North Tech High School. They're gracious enough to allow us that space to where we have our hub huddles. And so what that looks like is we have two agencies that come over to North Tech, and they facilitate information. We have CAPL, one of the groups that will come. They are filling out applications with families for utility assistance and the like. And then we have the Higher Education Consortium, HEC, that also comes to the hub, and they will assist families with completing applications for college. In addition to that, we have the satellite food pantry, and we have had 60 unique users, and that is open to the community. And so I'm very excited that we have had different groups within SSD to jump on board and say that they will have friendly competition amongst themselves, and they will gather tangible, non-perishable items that can be placed in the hub that people can come in and get as needed. And then the Special Education Foundation collaboration, there were 370 food kits that were purchased and distributed as well. And so there were 70 student-specific purchases. Next slide, please. I will turn it over to Dr. Bolt. So we just want to share with you a few opportunities that we are going to offer for next year. So as we talked about our Leadership Institute, we did hold one session this year. We'd like to broaden that to, no, sorry, I messed that up. That's the Family Academy. Let me back up. The Family Leadership Institute, we do offer 2 sessions a year, one in the fall and one in the spring. In addition to that, we are going to expand that to offer a full day Saturday session instead of 3 evening sessions. And that will be simultaneous with our Family Academy. Our Family Academy, we did one this past fall. Next year, we want to do a fall and a spring event for that. We are going to continue our family cafes because we've had such great feedback from our families. So again, we'll offer a spring and fall session, and that will be 3 evenings. Highly recommend you come join us if you'd like. We will also continue our workshops. And then a thing we're bringing back that we used to do previously is our American Sign Language class. And this has been a very popular offering in the past. With COVID, we kind of got away from it. So we're bringing that back, and we're actually using some of our staff to teach that class. So we're super excited. In fact, I'm going to be taking it, so if any of y'all want to join me, come on in. We'll continue our Lunch and Learn series as well, and our district PAC advisories, the supports that they might require from us, as well as continue our agency stakeholder meetings. Next slide, please. So another thing we've noticed as we have worked together, last year we merged PETA and Family Engagement together. And we've started a lot of new great initiatives this year that we're super excited about. But we noticed that our current structure is not the best to support some of the activities that we would like to do. So we have been, we've created our mission, we've created the standards that we want to follow, but we feel like we need a restructuring of the division in order to best meet the needs of our families. So right now, we are in the process of investigating many successful family engagement divisions in large school districts.
to see what they offer and how that structure might lend itself to support what we can, our mission and our engagement standards. So we're hoping to continue our research and have a proposal for fall that would then take place moving forward. Next slide, please. Some of our plans for the upcoming year also include collaborating with early childhood, special ed a little bit more. They have student support facilitators that do a lot of supports in homes, so we want to collaborate with them. We also want to develop an infrastructure for initial point of contact for students who are newly diagnosed. So this would be when a student is going through the evaluation process, we would have a member of SAFE reach out to them to offer our resources and support for those families as they're entering. We also are going to continue cross-training the current staff that we have now, and that would include the Harvard Family Engagement course that we built our foundation on, as well as the Charting the Life course ambassador training. Then with our new structure, we plan to develop a new 5-year plan, which we'll be able to bring to you guys next year. And we also want to do a little more promotion with our family and community resource library. We have a lot of great resources there. We just need to get the word out more. Just a little anecdote. I was able to attend the Autism Awareness Symposium sponsored by the St. Louis County Library. Last weekend, two weekends ago, we had over 150 families come and participate in that. We were with other agencies across St. Louis County, and one of the things that they loved was we brought resources from our resource library and had them on the table, and they could check them out right there. We had people from Jefferson County, people from St. Charles County, people from St. Louis County. And, you know, we don't discriminate. Like we say, if we have the resources, you need them, let's take them. And so it was so exciting to see. We had like maybe 2 books out of all the resources we brought left, with families so excited to explore the resources. We know this is a great resource that we have. We just got to get the word out a little bit more. So that's also in our plan. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions that you might have for us.
I don't have a question. I thank you for the report, but I, a couple of weeks ago, toured Nartec. And I must admit that I was very impressed with the food pantry and the kinds of efforts that are being put in to making sure that that particular pantry stops. And hopefully the community gets an opportunity to take advantage of those services. So I think that needs to be commended on those efforts.
Sure. 2 things, really more shout outs. Anyone listening, if you have a high schooler, do Charting the Life course. That was life changing. I plan to do it again when Tommy's a senior. Tommy.
Absolutely.
And also thinking back to younger Tommy days, having that contact for anyone who's has a newly diagnosed child, that could be life changing for them, because you're handed the poem "Welcome to Holland" and then told good luck if you know about it. And that's not enough. So having a point person would be amazing. So good idea. Any other questions?
I had 2. First of all, you said you're going to be looking at some other large school districts as models for family engagement. Which districts are those?
So far, we have contacted Philadelphia schools, Fairfax, Virginia, Miami, Metropolitan Nashville, Cleveland, Ohio, Colorado. They have a state department that works in the different school districts, so we've been in contact with them, and LA Unified.
The next question was, again, back to this program of reaching out to families. When you said, I want to clarify, you said when they're in the process of being assessed. Does that mean that we will be reaching out to anybody during the IEP evaluation, the initial IEP evaluation process before the determination as to whether or not they will be given an IEP?
I think it would be good to do that, just to offer support, even if they aren't diagnosed. You know, they may still need some support because most likely there are some concerns there.
I'm in agreement. That seems like that seems like a very large number of people to contact. I think that would be really wonderful.
Yeah. That would be our
I work with a lot of families who request IEPs, and I'm sometimes surprised when an evaluation is either applied at all, or when it's, the evaluation is conducted and they find that the kid doesn't need an IEP anywhere. I don't think they do. So, thank you.
just want to make sure our families have those resources.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say, Adrian, don't feel bad for scheduling, because we scheduled a.
Thank you very much.
All right, next on the agenda, 5.03, Board Community Engagement Plan Policy.
All right, good evening, President Potroff, Board of Directors, Dr. Keenan. I'm Kevin Andrew, Executive Director of Career and Technical Education in College and Career Readiness, and I'm here wearing the board policy hat this evening. So we're going to be talking about Policy KC, which is the Community Engagement Policy. The Senate Omnibus Bill from last session, which I'm sure you're very up to date on, 681, had buried in it a provision that boards of education are required to adopt a community engagement plan after receiving input from the community. The district must seek input from the community to develop the plan, and the plan must be adopted prior to July 1, 2023. So June 30th is our deadline to get this in place. Next slide. The plan components require community feedback and outline all the ways the district received feedback from the community. There's a variety of ways that could be done. That could be surveys, that could be meetings. You don't necessarily have to do something brand new. You can use structures that you already have in place. For example, at board meetings, we already allow public comments. So if we're presenting on the plan as a draft form, and you have the meeting open for public comment, that's an option for the community to provide you feedback on the plan. The next component of it is planned engagement activities. We list the activities where we would be engaging with the community. For example, the board would allow public comment at in-person business meetings would be an activity. Another activity could be that annually we'll use a third-party vendor to survey the community on their needs and how well is the district meeting their needs, which we're already doing that with Panorama, where there's a community survey and there's a family survey, and so you can use those structures that are already in place for the board to review for this plan. So the planned activities, we have to outline within them what type of work is it? So is it in person or is it virtual? And then kind of who's going to be involved in it? Is it the governing council? Is it families? Is it staff? Is it business and industry partners? Is it anyone in St. Louis County? Really narrowing what the scope of it is. So it could include like work that takes place with the PAC, that'd be work with families. Next slide. Then we have to talk about potential obstacles that we see with engaging the community in our plan. So we list out the challenges that the plan would need to overcome, things like accessibility, if we're doing things virtually, the technology access piece. Especially thinking this from the lens of special school districts, all of the adaptive needs that individuals might need to access what we're doing. So translation, all those different pieces, transcribing of meetings, those types of things, language barriers that could prevent individuals from accessing. Then we have to evaluate the plan, and then we have to spell out what our revision cycle is, which as the law states, we have to revise the plan annually. Now that doesn't mean that, we have to review annually. We don't have to revise the plan. If the plan is working, the plan can stay as is, but annually it has to be adopted. I did pass out as a handout the reference copy of what this looks like from MSBA, and then kind of filled it in with kind of some examples of what this would look like, so you can kind of see what the plan looks like. We're not talking about a novel here. It is one page, front, back, is what we're looking at. Really bullet point list, lining out what are those planned activities, bullet point list talking about the evaluation process and the obstacles. It's not a really long document. Additional requirements that are a part of the law is that community engagement must be used to create a process to allow any resident of the school district to have an item placed on the agenda for a school board meeting. That was another piece that was in Senate Bill 681. So if you looked at the policies going to first reading, BDDH, we had to add a provision in there, for what that process would look like for the community to put a item on the agenda for a board meeting. And so policy KC and BDDH kind of have to work in tandem. And so in the community engagement plan, we'd line out how this would fulfill what's outlined in BDDH. Next slide. So next steps. This is some work for you all. The board needs to identify how they want to build the plan with community input. One option, and this was in the MSBA recommendations, is just to create a committee or a work group that's going to kind of spearhead this. That committee or work group could include a variety of people, so that could include folks from district administration, board members, and also you can pull in community members as well to kind of draft the initial document. Again, kind of using the template that I shared from MSBA. Holding virtual or in-person listening sessions is an option. Another piece is once we have a draft plan of what this is going to look like, one recommendation was to put it out there on the district website and social media channels for public comment and feedback. It's giving the public a variety of ways that they can interface with the board about this plan. Another option could be surveying the community. Because we already utilize the Panorama tool to survey the community and survey families, that'd be something that we'd be able to leverage without doing a new survey around board communication. And then we need to finalize the plan and policy so it can go to the board in June. Because again, June 30th is the deadline, and we need to have this on the books as this is our plan. Again, it doesn't have to be a very detailed plan. We're really focusing on what are those high-level activities that we're doing so the board is engaging with the community and we're factoring in community voice. I know that was a lot of information really quick. Questions?
Couple things. One, with everything that Faith was just wonderfully talking about, can that be incorporated? You know, they're engaging with the community every day.
That's a really good question. Actually, when we first got the MSBA documents back, I reached out to Dr. Bolton because I'm like, I think this might be you and not so much me. And we went back and forth. But really, when you look at the statute, it's very much about, but how is the board going to interact with the community? So the district is already doing a lot of interaction with the community through FACE, but on top of that, how is the board making sure that they're getting community voice? So that's kind of the difference between this and kind of the FACE plan. There's a lot of stuff that FACE is doing that's going to give you guys usable data points to help guide how the board's going to interact, but this is specifically spelling out how are we as a board of education making sure that we're getting the voice of the community and factoring that into decision making.
I wrote worries here. The allowing anyone to come up and speak. So for example, we're going to have a presidential election coming up. There will be people on either side of the, but that has nothing to do with the special school district. Will someone come up and be like, I think blah, 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 I should be president. I'm going to talk here for as long as I want, even though it has, will affect the school district, but not directly the board. How do we navigate people who have direct comments and questions about the school district and anyone who just likes the microphone?
Yeah, so two pieces on that. So one, in BDDH, we do spell out that the public comment has to be germane to topics that are covered by the Board of Education. Specifically, the BDDH goes as far as saying it really is about something that's coming up in the meeting is what the public comment should be about. And it does spell out that public comment cannot be about any of that protected information. So ongoing litigation or personnel issues, public comment is not the forum for that. The other piece, that part that I talked about, the community being able to put an item on the board agenda. There's a process in place where first the individual has to work through a process where they get all the way to the point of meeting with the superintendent. And then if they meet with the superintendent and the issue is still not resolved, then that's the avenue for an item to wind up on the board agenda. Is they've worked all the way through district administration, they feel like the issue still hasn't been addressed, so then within 20 days of that meeting with the superintendent, it would need to go on to a board agenda. Now it's up to the board as far as what they want to do with that agenda item because it is your meeting. But the item would be on the agenda for the board.
That was my line. I have never seen a community agenda, ever. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, but I have never seen it. Now, right now, a board member can submit, I believe it's within 3 days of a meeting, they can submit a recommendation to put on there. Are we going to expand that to something similar to the
So
community
in
now?
BDH, there's timelines for when the community can add an item to the agenda. There's also a limit of how many community-based agenda items can go onto a meeting. I believe it's 3 is the maximum. And so if we already have 3 on the agenda and there were 4 items that they were seeking to place, that would move to the next business meeting, is how that would work. There's also the ability to potentially combine items. The law does recognize that you might have a lot of community feedback around one specific topic. So do you really need 3 agenda items on roughly the same topic? Might be around curriculum, or it might be around something involving a specific school, that those could be condensed together into one topic. This is something that is a bit of a learning curve for everybody involved, because it's mandated.
We're voting on this for first read today, and then we'll be looking at this at the policy meeting on Friday as well. First or second meeting.
So it wouldn't go back to the policy committee for second reading, because the policy for KC is pretty well in place. This plan, I'm sorry, BDH, yeah, for both of those, but then this is something that's gonna layer on top of that, is the community engagement plan.
I would probably recommend, much as we might want to throw that back, so that we can look to see how these two interact.
Yeah.
I think it would be nice to have go with this, a regulation that would go with this, so it spell out how we're doing it.
And so all of that, if you look at the BDH in the first reading, it is pretty prescriptive in there of the step-by-step process. I would say that's a policy that looks a lot more like a regulation than it does a policy.
I was figuring, see if we can meld the two of these together.
So MSBA is wanting us to keep the two separate just because of the requirement around the community engagement plan. That policy, KC, is really just around that community engagement plan, but recognizing the community engagement plan has to have a reference back to BDH.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much. 5.04, union negotiations update presentation.
Good evening, President Patro, Board of Education, Dr. Keenan, my name is Phil Boyd, Chief People and Culture Special School District. And the purpose of this presentation is to give you an update on where we are with the negotiations thus far. I'll start off first by saying that investing in our employees is to invest in our children. I tried to do in a very collaborative way is to work together to find the best way to approach salaries, to approach benefits, to look at potential changes so that we have an equity lens and how we get our bargaining unit. Next slide, please. So I'd also like our guests to come up here and please introduce themselves. Standing up here with me.
Tammy McGraw, President of SDNEA.
Good evening, I'm Madeline Cola. I am your Missouri NEA Student Serve Director, working with SDNEA, SDEA, and SDVO. Good evening, I'm Vicki Haynes, President of SDEA.
Good evening, I'm Ashley Gerald, President of SDVLS.
One of the great opportunities that we had this bargaining season, both the SDEA, SDVLS, and SDNEA, was to engage in interest-based bargaining. The way that that differs from traditional collective bargaining is that you engage in the 5-step process to really identify both interests and framing the focus on the question. So instead of coming in and saying we're going to do this, we come with a question about, how do we change the way that we approach benefits? And then we start going through the process of saying, why is this important? What are some examples? What are the things that we do? And we realized that we had to be very employee focused in order to get to the best answers and the best possibilities. Next slide. So in terms of what we try to do is really approach this from an aspect of possibility. Was it possible to look at our employee groups and create some commonalities from an equity lens? For example, we wanted to look at how do we have common paid parental leave, looking at expansion of the PTO bank, tuition reimbursement for all full-time staff, updating grievance procedures so that they are reflective of an equal approach in terms of days, in terms of opportunity to have appeals, and looking at things such as making sure that we had increased the number of days for which employees could be paid, or hourly staff could be paid for holidays. But, so one of the, I think, is the ability of DA and SSD administration that work together to, I think, create a fairly robust approach for how we want to look at the next 3 years. Next slide. We had a large negotiations team. It was a robust negotiations team. We had a lot of fun, and we had a lot of deep conversations. And this was also an opportunity for us to make sure that we actually heard each other. We tried our best to make sure that when people came into the room, that we didn't just sit, SSD admin wasn't on one side, SDA leadership was just on one side, we mixed it up. That allowed for a lot of really great connecting, and it allowed for people to be real with their room. Next slide. So we focused on issues, and we allowed ourselves to have deep conversations, and I would say that most of the time we left many of our conversations tired, but not tired of each other. And I think that's very important. Forward to the opportunity to continue to go deep on some issues, and even though we started in January, I would say given the breadth of changes that we're looking at, I think that we're right on time in terms of getting to a place where we can sign off and TA on many things, and SEA is to ratify on the current proposed joint resolution. Next slide. Some of the language changes are going to be, again, around due process. We're doing something very different in terms of how we're approaching the voluntary transfers. We're no longer going to do the transfer fair because that ended up being a logistical nightmare for everybody. And when I first came in July, and I asked them, why do we do it that way? No one really had an answer, but everybody was like saying, because SSD wanted it that way, and everybody said, no, it's the associations that wanted it that way. And I said, it sounds like nobody likes this. So we have our first agreement. Here. Nobody likes this, so let's figure out a good way to change that. We looked at making sure that we had clarity around hours of work. And some of what we talked about, too, wasn't just about language in the JR. It was about commitments. So not everything went to language. Things came out as, we know that we need to do some additional training, right? Mutual training. Additional training to make sure that we know how to approach things like approving leave, making sure that we have training around making sure that administrators know how to think about what's needed for time off, making sure that we're in compliance with the Fair Labor Standards Act. And then looking at holidays, we realized that we wanted to remove what was a significant barrier for our hourly staff, where they could go several weeks without pay, while in the middle of the school year, where we're expecting them to really take care of our children. Next slide, please. We're looking at things such as also paid time off and the ability to sell back accrued PTO, whether you're resigning or whether you're retiring, but also looking at it when you look across industries, making sure that there's the opportunity for those employees that have been dedicated and have saved up their PTO to make sure that their families can get that PTO in the event of death while they are working for us. We looked at really paying attention to the sub-pay, which had stayed the same for a long time, and looking at making sure that the compensation for ESY summer programming would reflect what people were paid during the school year. They're being asked to do the same job for less. That was something that mutually we said, it actually makes more sense to make sure that we're supporting them by paying them what they earned during the school year. Next slide. Again, grievance procedures, we found that there were some discrepancies in the ways that the grievance procedures were approached, so we wanted to make sure that that was common for all employees. Besides that, we're looking at making sure that there were, grammatical changes. There's changes in people's titles, there's changes in offices, and we are looking at designing a new cover page. We did the associations deserve something a little bit more stylish, so we're working on that as well. Next slide. In summary, in terms of costs, we are looking at year one increases over current year, 23 million, year two, 3.1 million, year three, 2.8. Total for 3 years, an increase in cost of 29 million. Next slide. So what's our continued work look like? We know that we're going to need more collaboration, and we have found that collaboration is a very effective way to make sure that we create sustainable change, and then also continue to explore additional health and safety needs, to include really looking at how additional training, including physical preparedness training, can be impactful. But our next organization that was able to ratify has been the Special District Visual Language Specialist, or SDVLS. Next slide. We had a smaller team, but no less fun. We were able to actually, I think in our first day, out of like potentially 10 issues, I think we TA'd on 8 or 9 fairly quickly. We were, I would say, very much in line. Next slide, please. Again, this was about collaboration, focusing on issues, allowing ourselves the space in the room to really go deep and identify and frame and focus to understand why is it that we need to address certain things and what would be the best ways to attack them. One of the things that we looked at that was very important was looking at employee evaluation, making sure that we were updating language, and also making sure that we have processes that make sense for the group. We also looked at changing the voluntary transfer process across groups as well, and making sure that we looked at the number of days that needed to be increased so that we would not have burdens on people not being paid for holidays. Next slide, please. Again, you'll see some of the same things in terms of making sure that we were increasing the sub rate, and also looking at making sure that the pay was the same for the regular academic year as it is for the school year. Next slide. Updates outside of those big changes were around, again, title changes, grammatical changes, and making sure that we had a new cover page for the association. Next slide. Summary of costs. Increase in cost in the first year is a little over 1 million. A second year increase is 108,000. Third year increase 148, for a total of over 3 years of 1.2 million. To answer any questions.
Got some questions. I'm just curious, why was our CFO involved in these negotiations? This one really throws me. Since we're talking money, why was not Digital Handles the money involved in the negotiations?
As we established when we talked about we're knowledgeable of people of the positions that were going on, and the money part of it was going to be separated, and we would look at that individually. So.
But I see all these things involve our budget. Why wasn't the CFO involved in it?
They were communicating behind the scenes. Things were being.
So Jeff, you were involved in this?
He was not directly involved with pieces of it. As well, each one of the language pieces that we talked with the board to.
When I look at our fund balance, which is right now 71%. I'm just wondering, at the end of 26, it goes down to 42%. Okay, so it's a 29% drop. When I look at the projections to 28, it goes down to 19%, which means it's dropped 53%. It's bouncing down quick. Now, I want somebody who's in our budget. I mean, that's beyond my expertise. I just look at percentages going way down. I just want somebody from our budget to say, this is okay. Is this okay?
We brought this to the board. Dr. We've been talking about this for the last couple of board meetings.
This is the first time I saw these percentages.
We brought these pieces to the board over the last couple of scenarios, and then we finalized the numbers. We're bringing this to the board for the last several.
I saw 28. Can you show me in the board where I saw 28 before?
I'm not sure what those other numbers are, but we brought those similar ones too. So I'm just saying that we have been bringing these conversations to the board.
I would ask to see where those were brought to me before. I'm not doubting you. I just want to see them.
Yeah, but we had those in those exact sessions.
Okay, just show me where we did it before. I'm not going to sit there and argue. I just want to see it. And I think, deal with this kind of money. Should have had a CFO involved.
He was involved in the negotiation meetings.
Can we have moving forward the COO in the negotiation meeting?
We can absolutely do that if we have a working relationship with our board, with our unions. If we have an established relationship with. So we establish who is all going to be involved. Important that the union had people from involved with the day-to-day work. Not with the paraprofessionals and not with the.
This doesn't make sense. The CFO should have been involved. That's my opinion.
I appreciate that.
And I would love to hear what the other members of the board. Does anyone else feel the CFO should have been involved? And especially when you're talking salary negotiations.
Right, for salary, when it has money.
And our fund balance.
And our fund balance. Because we're talking projections later on.
And we've been.
They have them not.
Yeah,
Well, to me, that's
this is
that's
information
incompetence.
you all, that we talked about in executive, like, moving on, yeah.
We've been bringing it.
Any other questions? I have one about the transfer. So we all hated the old way. What does the new way look like?
So how we're going to approach it is really how many districts approach it. When positions come open, we'll allow for first an internal process before we go external. And we're going to basically, as long as we're not dealing with like some kind of immediate emergency weakness, if we have a position that opens in January, or even if we have a position that we know is going to be open in December, we'll start a process ahead of time. So we won't wait until like the January transfer fair, the March transfer fair, the May transfer fair. We want to make sure that we're filling positions as soon as possible.
So I assume it's all on a website that employees can be looking at, check every Sunday or whatnot for new open positions.
Oh, we intend to work with communications to make sure that we have those positions readily available. I mean, there are currently, any open position will be on our site. We're looking at announcing any new openings every week.
What I very understand about the old transfer fair was if somebody, let's say, worked in Lumberg and they moved to Rockwood and they were wanting to transfer over to there, still within SSD, they would do that as a transfer fair. Is that still?
We would still prioritize internal transfers.
Okay.
As much as possible until June 1st. Because what we found was that when I came in July, there were a number of positions we were still hiring for, and they were delayed simply because of where they fell in terms of the transfer fair. So certain positions, if they didn't meet a particular window, they then went into a later transfer fair. So sometimes we have positions we would have known needed to be filled for a couple of months before we would actually start posting and hiring process for that position.
So now it'll be posted immediately so people can.
Correct. Yeah.
So instead of a one-time thing, it'll be trickle all day, every year. Every day during the year.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
First of all, comment and question. So first of all, in terms of our discussions, at least as I understood them within our board meetings, our directions to our administrative team was my direction. And my comments were, I want you guys to have a win. Because I think we win when our employees win. That's really the goal. I think we could pay employees what they're worth. I want people who work for SSD to feel like this is a good job that they want to come back to. And this is how we keep the school staffed at every district all around the county. I agree with Dr. Cuneo. I don't recall our fund balance dipping this low, and perhaps it was because the percentages weren't being reported to us. And my request for our administrative team is, and I don't want to speak for you, but I appreciate what your concern may be, is that the fund balance is just going down. My question is, and this could be discussed today or a later date, but what I'd really like to present to us is, what's the plan to have things level off? Because of course, while our fund balance, and this is thanks to the board members who were here before my time, who put us in a really great financial position where we can do these things. The question now is, how do we make it continue? How does the fund balance level off so that we can afford these increases, which I think are needed? And that's my question.
I'm not doubting, what you're saying. I want to make sure everybody gets it. My question is, I want to make sure that I have the money. The way I look at this now, it's keep dropping. By the year 2029, we'd be in the hole.
As we've talked about before, as we invest going forward, we do need to think about to bring down the funding. That we would also look at how do we which was the tax base.
Which I've said, that's why we start meeting. This is what we're going to be doing. We start figuring by 2026 at the all-time rate.
Yes.
Unless we have additional expenses, and God knows what we have. I'm telling you what, we're looking at the figures now, as we're seeing. Not that there's going to be any massive change, but who could predict an 8% or a 9% inflation a year ago? Looking at this right here, 2029, we're broke. Okay? I'm saying, if this is correct, and I'm not doubting Jeff's figures at all, I'm saying, if these projections are correct, we're going from 71%, 42%, 24 to 26, which is a 29% drop. Projections are that we're going to drop down to 19% by 2028. The next projection puts us in a hole. I'm saying, if this is the case, that means we need to start talking next year, an exploratory of when we're going to have our next tax increase. And we also need to find out what other districts are thinking that same thing. I don't want to go for a tax increase when Parkway or Lindbergh or Hazelwood is going for one. Best shot to try to go is if you go alone.
Absolutely.
Especially since we're hitting all the places of the thing. So, if I would feel a lot more comfortable if this would if I had a CFO who was in these meetings signing off on the same, hey guys, I agree with this. That's why I want, hopefully in next year's negotiation, next time we have a negotiation, I would love to have a CFO there saying, guys, you can do this. You have the guys, gals, whoever, you have the finances to do it. I haven't had a sign off on that. That, even though it's behind the scenes, I would feel much more comfortable if our CFO, whoever that CFO is, be on that negotiating team. That way, when it comes back, I know that that individual is there each time it occurs. I agree with you. Our people deserve the most.
What this really was about, and it was making sure that we are supporting our staff who have been in our, especially our largest group, our paraprofessionals. That group of staff support our students each and be able to give them a living wage. Be able to support that, and we've had those. How do we invest in our staff to be able to make sure that we are really honoring that? Going forward, we are absolutely going to be looking in terms of the overall. That doesn't always factor in all the additional revenue that.
Or the lack of revenue you might get. Especially when I'm talking about Missouri. Right now, we're flush. I can't tell you what we're gonna be in 2 years.
Yes.
I can tell you that
We will
the
know
way
in
these
2 to 3
projections
years.
look, we are $230 million less. All I'm saying is, not doubting that we need to put the money, I'm not doubting we need to put the staff. I am saying, to make sure that we have stability. That's why we have a CFO. That's why the CFO should be on that committee. That to me makes sense.
I agree with that, and I think going forward, we can absolutely build that into the pieces of it. I think this is really important to make sure that we're sitting at the table, what we're really invested in. And I think going forward, we know, and we've been talking, bring down the investment, supporting our staff. At this time. So we have continued to work on that, we'll continue to and then we'll make sure that as we go forward, that when we plan out that if we need to the tax rate, that's when you are correct.
We were going, if you look at the numbers, we were going down 10 to 15 million a year. 5 years, this projection here, we're going down 230 million. That's a much bigger drop. All I'm saying is, give me a sign off from a CFO. Let somebody say, this is fine, because later if this screws up, no offense, Jeff, or whoever's the CFO, I'd want their head. Because they told me I could do this. I don't have anybody like that. That's why I'm on a CFO.
Any other questions?
I just want to make sure that I think that we have to support our staff on this is going to be life changing for our staff. And I think that, you know, that I don't want that to get lost on.
I tears, little tears on both sides of the about how life-changing this is. People having to work only one job now, maybe instead of 3.
That's great.
So it's very gratifying. On behalf of parents, you have tremendously helped parents professionals out to the fact where you're also going to save on retention because numerous, maybe 40% or so are ready to walk out the door. So I hope that helps you understand because they couldn't afford to stay here.
That's fantastic. Please put the word out for them to.
Yeah. They will. That's something. That'll be nice.
That's what we
Don't
want.
they get money if they do that? Don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They get-
referral bonus.
We want people to.
So thank you. Really appreciate it.
And to your earlier comment, Mr. Boyd brought us this initial proposal. I told him I've never felt so taken care of. So he really did hear what you said.
And the parents told us that yesterday, how they finally felt appreciated and taken care of by the SSD. Some after even 27 years of being with SSD, so that's big. Thank you. Money well spent, I can say.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. So, don't go anywhere. All right, so 5.05 special effects.
Talk about the acronym.
Remind us again about the acronym.
Yes, so special effects stands for faculty focus on equity, collaboration, and transformation in schools. Next slide. The big why is that we recognize that there was a particular need to support some of our and wanted to make sure that we were looking at how we were pushing support from the standpoint of resources, both in terms of potential stipends, but also in terms of training. Next slide. We identified districts through a or basically data lens, which was disproportionality, high needs, high vacancies, and low potential. Next slide. Based upon those criteria, we identified 5 districts, Ferguson, Florissant, Hazelwood, Jennings, Normandy, and Riverview. Additionally, we looked at some of the other data points that were really important and found that the districts also had some of the lowest academic outcomes in the county. Next slide. At this time, we are asking that the board approve stipend for staff that were allocated to these districts.
I think this is the next one. I probably look like the Scrooge here today, but I think this is truly money well spent.
I have a question. Is this for teachers and parents, or teachers, just parents, everyone?
It's for all staff that are.
Okay. Any other questions? Do I have a motion on the table for 6.01, approval of the consensual items? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Oh, any opposed? All right, motion carries. Action items 8.01, adopt on first reading GBAD telework. Oh, do I have a motion?
May I speak? As part of the policy.
I need a motion.
I need a motion to accept.
Yes, do I have a motion?
So,
Do I have a second? Okay.
Before this one is done, the reason why this is we're adopting it on the first reading. Usually what happens is we only adopt on a first reading, going to a second reading and all that, unless if there's something that needs to be done right away, or if there is an emergency that has to be dealt with. This is specifically done so that we can make sure that people can plan for their summers and working. So I would recommend, as part of the policy committee, that we not go through the second reading, and in fact, we adopt it on the first reading. And I say that because in our policy meeting, we say that we cannot do this unless somebody brings us up. So I'm gonna bring it up.
Thank you. All right, all in favor of adopting on the first reading GBAD telework, say yay. Yay. Any nay? Motion carries. 9.01, the closed meeting of the Board of Education on April 25th, today, and also May 9th at 7 p.m. or following this meeting for April 25th. And I need a motion first. Can I have a motion for 9.01?
second.
First try. All right, now I need a roll call.
Yes.
Director Cuneo,
Yes.
Director Faulkner,
Yeah.
Hudson. Yes. President Potroff.
Yes. I have a motion for 9.02, the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 9.03, board regulations. All right, 9.04, executive meeting action items. The following items were approved during the executive meeting on March 14th, 2023. Employment, resignations, retirement, salary adjustments, extra duty pay, reemployment of teacher level personnel for the 23-24 school year, worker compensation settlement. Following items were approved during the executive meeting on April 11th, 2020. Employment, resignations, retirement, salary adjustments, extra duty pay, 1 settlement, and 6 non-renewals. 9.05, board communications. Does anyone have anything to share? I do. Hats off to New Warner for hosting the prom on last Friday, Tommy's first prom. It was amazing. So cheers to the PTO and staff who put it on. It was fabulous. All the kids got dressed up, Tommy wore a red suit. The music was, the DJ, Mr. Johnson, did a perfect job of finding just the right balance of rock, fun dance music, but not too much to overstimulate the students. I don't know how, it was a lot of yacht rock, you know, that station? A lot of the Eagles was playing a lot. Yeah. But they loved it. They catered it with the pasta house. Every kid had a good time. I didn't see anyone cry. Tommy left before he was going to get to that point, so good time. I was like, oh, thank you, New Warner. I never thought my son would go to prom. And know a lot of parents who go to our schools probably think the same thing. So there they are. I forgot the food in the year, so next year I'll run with the food in the year. But yeah, so thank you to the PTO and everyone anywhere for that. All right, 10.01 calendar events. You can see it on our website and all that good stuff. Do I have a motion for adjourn? To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Minutes.